not all love is good love. And when you are first in a relationship, that bit shuts down, it deactivates. So you're not actually as good at guessing someone's intentions. So things like lying or cheating or gaslighting, you are just not as good at detecting them as you usually would be. You actually put yourself in a pretty risky situation. You can't see those red flags. But it's also why love can be dangerous, because
love can bond us or it can actually blind us. It can heal us or it can harm us. It can nurture us or it can numb us. So Dr. Anna Machin, in your expertise as an evolutionary anthropologist who has spent over a decade studying the science of relationships, love and human behavior, while love can feel so euphoric, how does it also create the perfect trap for a narcissist, a psychopath or a bad actor to manipulate us?
because we crave love so viscerally, it runs through every fibre of your being, your craving for love, and every aspect of your daily life is kind of orientated around your relationships. That means it can be used to exploit you, because you want it so badly that you will put up with or be absorbed into relationships who are actually critical in terms of they are dangerous. But because we crave love so much, we stay when maybe we shouldn't. And that's why it's a very powerful thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing. And you have to be aware of that. Not all love is good love. It's really interesting. When I talk to people about love, I always say to them, can love ever be negative? And it's kind of split 50-50. You get the 50% who I call like the, I suppose the purists who go, well, no, because if it's negative, it can't be love. And then I get the 50% who go, yeah, sure. I mean, at one end of that, you've got jealousy. And at the other end of that, you've got extreme violence, coercion, suppression, all these things. And of course, it can be negative. So we all have a different idea about what love is, but we need to be aware of the fact that, yeah, there's that negative end of it.
Okay, when we talk about the dark triad, so I would love for you to break down what the dark triad is, first of all, and then how they then use that love and turn it into manipulation.
Okay, so dark triad is like the triple whammy of negative personality traits. There are no positive sides to them at all. So first of all, we have a narcissist. I think we all know now what narcissists are. They are people who have extreme self-aggrandizement. So they think they're the pinnacle of creation, basically. They often put other people down to make themselves feel better. Often, actually, that's hiding a deep self-loathing, which is something we always need to remember about narcissists. That's actually what's behind it all deep down. But yeah, they are the sort of people who will push people down and down and down and damage their self-esteem to make themselves look better and feel better. So you have your narcissist. Then you have someone who's a psychopath. Now, psychopaths like causing pain. They like toying with people. They achieve their ends usually in a really costly way to the other person. All they're interested in is their own self-progression, raising of their own position, making themselves feel better about life. And they have generally no empathy at all. They are not interested in how much damage they do to achieve whatever end goal they want to achieve. And then finally, we have Machiavellianism. Now, Machiavellianism is an extreme form of manipulation. What's really interesting about people who have this particular personality trait is they actually have really high emotional intelligence. And we always think of emotional intelligence as a good thing, but actually it can be used for a much darker reason. Because if you're really, really good at reading people, reading their intentions, reading their needs, you can then exploit them and manipulate them really, really well. So people who are Machiavellian use this extreme intelligence, this emotional intelligence, to actually negative ends. But the thing about the dark triad is it's all of those wrapped up into one. And we know that people who are dark triad, first of all, unfortunately, they're generally pretty successful in life, because otherwise they would not have persisted in our population. So individually, for number one, it's great, be a dark triad. You know, you will literally leave the bodies lying to achieve what you want to achieve. But it's obviously completely negative for the person who's in the relationship with it. We know from numerous studies that people who are dark triad tend to maintain their relationships through what we call, and this is a bit of science jargon, but costly mate retention techniques. Okay. And what we mean is the way they maintain their relationships is through physical, emotional, financial abuse, through coercion, through gaslighting, through manipulation. And that's how they maintain their relationship, rather than positive mate retention techniques, which are things like mutual support, compassion, trust, empathy, gift giving, running your partner to the bath at the end of the day with the candles because they've had a bad day, that kind of thing. So they generally use these negative retention techniques. And then people who have never experienced one of these people go, well, why stay then? It's perfectly obvious this person is unbelievably awful. They are so good at judging when you are just at the edge of going, I'm done. And they will pull back and they will love bomb and they will suddenly sprinkle a few positive techniques in there, which again then leaves you questioning, well, did I make up all that behavior? Am I perceiving things wrong? And it really destabilizes you. So they're really, really good at gaslighting and reining you back in.
Oh, okay. That was so good. That was so good. Okay, I'd love to now take that and go through somewhat of the journey when you're falling in love. And you say something like, an addict loves heroin like you want love, something like that. And it made me realize that the relationships and the layers of relationships is somewhat like a drug journey. So you talk about step 1, which is where I'd love to start, which is the euphoric phase.
Yes.
So as like a drug, it's like the dating, right? Where you're just meeting. Talk to me about that euphoric phase and then how someone who is a dark triad will turn that negative.
Yeah, okay. So the real thing that's going on when you first fall in love is you get hit by a set of 3 neurochemicals. The first one is oxytocin, which we've all heard of. Oxytocin works, so when you lock eyes across the crowded room with the person you think you might fancy, it lowers your inhibitions to forming new relationships. And what that means is there's a fear center of your brain called the amygdala, and it quietens the amygdala. So that noise in the back of your head that's going, you're going to walk across the bar, you're going to strike up conversation, they're going to reject you, everybody in the bar is going to know you've been rejected, you're going to have to walk back to your bar stall, it's going to be awful. It quietens it. It makes you more confident as you walk across that room. So that's oxytocin, and that's really important because if we didn't have that, particularly as humans, we're quite risk averse, and we probably would be like, oh, I'm just not going to go anywhere, I'm just going to sit here.
Is that one reason, do you think, why women love love so much? Is because you actually feel a little more confident than you would without it?
It is, absolutely. But it's also why love can be dangerous, because the whole point of the amygdala is it scans the room and is like, where's the risk? Where's the risk? Avoid the risk. And obviously you're quietening it. So from a safety point of view, it's not actually a terribly good idea. And the other thing that happens, I was going to mention this later, but I'll mention this now, there's a bit of the brain called the mentalizing area of the brain. And the mentalizing area of the brain is the bit that can tell, the mind reads. It tries to read what someone's intentions are. And when you are first in a relationship, that bit shuts down, it deactivates. So you're not actually as good at guessing someone's intentions. So things like lying or cheating or gaslighting or any of these things, you are just not as good at detecting them as you usually would be. Which is why you can be in a relationship with someone and your friends might be saying to you, this is bad news, this person is bad news, and you just don't see it. And what I always say to women is, trust your friends. Because their bit hasn't turned off and they can see what you can't see. And it's really interesting because obviously that quietening of the amygdala and the deactivation of this mind-reading area of your brain is actually dangerous. So why did it evolve? Why have we maintained it? And we don't 100% know, but like when we sit in the pub after the end of the day and we're chatting about these things, we think it might be that, again, humans are so risk averse, we are so aware of danger that if it didn't deactivate, we would actually never form a relationship.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understood that. That was so good. Okay. All right, guys, we'll be right back with Dr. Machin. But for 1 second, if you want to build your confidence, build your self-worth, set boundaries and stand up for yourself, then smash that subscribe button down there so you can get notified every single time an episode comes out. You are not alone, and we are here to build our confidence together. So smash that subscribe button. Now, back to the episode. So it is the oxytocin.
Yes.
Somewhat makes you want to walk across the room because it somewhat quietens the other part that's the fear, oh my God, what if I get rejected? It's amazing when you're looking for love, but it can be very dangerous if you're being attracted to the wrong person because you're building your confidence to approach someone who could be very bad. And then your other part of the mind reading completely shuts off.
Yes.
So that you don't know if they're lying, manipulating, all because of love.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, you actually put yourself in a pretty risky situation. You can't see those red flags necessarily. You know, if they're blaring at you even, some people can't see it.
Right.
So that's why it's dangerous. But as I say, it's seen as an important part of the attraction stage because otherwise you probably wouldn't do anything at all. So that's what oxytocin's doing. And as you say, it can make you more confident, but at the same time, it can kind of put you in a little bit of danger because you're not actually as good at it. Then we have dopamine. Now, dopamine, we've all heard of dopamine. Dopamine is actually your hormone of motivation. and it motivates you to do things. And the thing about oxytocin, if you've ever, most people haven't, but if you've ever had a shot of oxytocin, it makes you feel really quite chilled. And if we just did that at that stage, you might be like so chilled you don't actually get off the bar stool and do anything. So you have to have dopamine to make you
You're
go,
just looking at them dreamily across
exactly the room, but I'm actually not. I'm having a lovely time on my own. So you have dopamine to like kick you up the bum and go, no, you have to go and do something. So those two come together. And dopamine is also a chemical of reward. So it gives you that feeling of this is something enjoyable to do. This is something I want to do. So I'm going to go do it. And then finally we have serotonin. And serotonin is, of the three, in a way, the most fascinating one. Because when you are in that really early attraction stage, whilst oxytocin and dopamine go up, serotonin goes down. And for a really long time, this was confusing because we were like, but it's supposed to be your happy chemical. That's weird. Why would it go down at the start of a relationship? What it is, we now know from studying people with obsessive compulsive disorder that they have low circulating serotonin. So serotonin is actually the hormone of obsessive love. And at the start of a relationship, it drops. So you become more obsessive in your behavior towards this person. Now, we're not talking for them generally, we're not talking about, really obsessive, unacceptable behaviors. But you have to be vaguely obsessed with the person that you're going to start a relationship with to change your life to fit them in.
Right.
Yeah? If you think you suddenly, your timetable shifts, what you're going to do each day shifts, how your social network shifts, and you have to be a bit obsessed with them to do that. And it's also why when you're first in a relationship, it's kind of like your brain is invaded by that person. Every single minute of the day you're thinking about them. You're looking at their Instagram, you're daydreaming about them, you're messaging them, you're boring your friends senseless with the latest story or the latest date or whatever. And that's the low serotonin. And it does have a really important function. But again, if it drops too low, then you step into unacceptable obsessive behaviours.
Oh, so the lower it is, the more obsessive that person gets.
Yes, and obviously we don't want obsessive behaviours which become controlling or stalking or any of these.
That's what I was going to ask. Are stalkers then most likely to have a really low serotonin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically the attraction stage. And really what people who are like the dark triad exploit is, first of all, whether they consciously know it or not, and we're not quite sure, they are very good at spotting people who crave love, and they know that they can use that to manipulate. It's kind of within them. The thing to say about dark triad personalities is they are often the production of a poor attachment themselves somewhere in their past. So they have been brought up to think the way that you keep a relationship, the way you find a relationship is exploitative. It's exploitative, and then it's manipulative, and it's violent, or it's abusive in some way. And that's how you do it. Because whilst narcissism is reasonably heritable, actually, if you are the child of a narcissist, you are more likely yourself to be a narcissist. Psychopathy isn't. So psychopathy is environmental. So often they have learned their way of doing relationships by observing how their parents or their carers or somebody close to them when they were a child did relationships. It's like a radar. Find the people who are more vulnerable and who are more likely to crave love to an extent that you can then exploit them with it. And they use the fact that, this oxytocin is making this person feel more confident, more open to a new relationship, less risk aware, and they will use that to their ends and reel that person in. And I think anybody who's been in one of these relationships, even if it's not a dark triad, even if it's just with a narcissist or a psychopath, You're
lucky if you get away with it if it's just a psychopath.
Just a narcissist. They love bomb you. They give you the thing that you think you really need. They make you feel amazing. They fulfill all the fantasies or the daydreams of what romance should look like. So it will be perfect, it will be gifts. They will make you the center of their world. They will listen to every single word you speak and reflect it back to you. But it's all this plan, because actually what they're doing is they're excluding you and they're isolating you, and they're making you emotionally reliant upon them. So that when all those initial chemicals disappear, which they do, and they're replaced by a slightly different chemical, you're kind of already tethered. You're already in, they've reeled you in, and you're already there. And when they start then to ease the love bombing and start peppering it with a bit of more negative behaviours, you are already addicted to them. You have already probably started an attachment to them, and then it's much, much harder to get away. They will also play on, usually people who are susceptible to these sorts of relationships want to care for someone. And they are particularly good at caring for people and helping people who appear broken. And so again, what dark triads tend to play on is this idea that they are broken in some way, and I need you to fix me, and I need you. You are my foundation. You are the reason I breathe. And therefore, you feel as the person who wants to care that, okay, I'm going to build you up. I am literally your life support machine, and I will be with you and help you do that. And that's why it's so dangerous. But also, it's also the opportunity for that dark triad person to use their amazing abilities at emotional intelligence, to read how you're feeling. So they are very good at just the flickers on your face of they're losing interest, or I've gone too far, or they're getting bored, or, you know, that's obviously a trigger for them. I need to back off. And they will then adjust their conversation to make sure they keep pulling you in. They are very, very good at it. Sorry, guys, but generally, when we observe dating, and we observe a lot of it, men tend to dominate conversations in dating scenarios generally. If you are with a guy, and I'm not saying they're all awful, some of them might genuinely be the most amazing listeners, okay? But dark triad personalities tend to ask you a lot about yourself.
That's so hard to get your head wrapped around, though, because sometimes if it's a really good human, like when I first went on a date with my husband, he was so intrigued, and I loved that he was intrigued.
And that's really attractive, because we as women also, you get used to like not being listened to as much, and you get used to not being the topic of the conversation, particularly in a male environment. So when a man comes along and is fascinated by you and wants to know everything, that makes you feel amazing. And in most scenarios, that guy's great. Wow, you've got yourself a keeper, brilliant. But it's also exploited at the other end by men and women who know that making you feel like the centre of the world, that this person, it gets you, I get you. That's a really good way of reeling you in.
I really do believe that if you find someone beautiful, honest, kind, caring, they really can be the wind beneath your wings and help you soar so high.
Yes.
But you find someone that is using all of these tactics and tools to manipulate you, it feels like they're a weight around your ankle and you get thrown into the deep end of the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first stage. So once you've gone through the euphoric high as a drug, love, then you get like the cravings. You need like the constant fixes.
Yes.
And now you're just always looking for that next hit, that next hit, that next hit.
Absolutely.
With relationships, it's texting and calling and things like that.
Yeah, so there's two things going on there. There's something biological going on in terms of neurobiology, and there's something psychological going on. So if we look at the neurobiology first, so the chemicals that are in your brain, those three that I talked about initially, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, they're not powerful enough to maintain relationships for the period of time that humans are capable of having them, decades, even years. So we have a chemical that we only share with a few other highly intelligent animals, which is known as beta endorphin. And beta endorphin underpins long-term love in humans. And beta endorphin is an opiate. So it's heroin, it's morphine, okay? It's highly addictive. So when you are with the person you love, you get a hit of beta endorphin and you feel astonishing. You feel like you could take on the world, that you are the most powerful person, you are confident, your self-esteem is high, all these sorts of things. You go away from them for whatever reason and you go into opiate withdrawal. You go cold turkey. And that's the mechanism that pulls you back, because you start to crave the contact of that person. They are the source of your opiate hit. So you crave being back with them, and it draws you physically and physiologically back to that person. So it's a very, very simple addictive mechanism. That's all it is. And it's when you're away, that actual physical pain you feel when you're away from someone, that sickness, that yearning, that your heart hurts, that is all withdrawing from beta endorphin.
Wow, because it really does feel like your body is hurting.
Yeah, and it's craving, and it's being drawn. I mean, it's like any addiction. It's like alcoholism, drug addiction, anything. It's that absolute physical longing to be with that person, because then you will get your hit of opiate. That is why we can end up in some relationships where we know consciously that it's bad. It's not a good relationship, but physiologically, this is again is an unconscious mechanism, You are being drawn to that person because you are addicted to that person. So in a good relationship, that beta endorphin is a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. From a physical point of view, it underpins your immune system. So you will be healthier. It helps your mental health. It gives you really high self-esteem. It makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel like you could do anything. And that's wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling to have. But as I said, in a poor relationship, the fact that it's addictive and the fact that sometimes you cannot overpower with your conscious brain just that deep unconscious physiological need for that person. And that's why it's a dangerous thing to be in.
Coming up.
It's kind of a controversial piece of work, but there is a particular gene which seems to predispose people to be more likely to be unfaithful.
What up, my homie? Can we talk about that 3 p.m. crash and burn moment? You're running from task to task, your energy is wavering, and hunger is rapidly approaching. So you need something absolutely fast that won't leave you feeling like total rubbish. That's where Paleo Valley beef sticks come in. These are not just like your gas station beef sticks. These are absolutely clean, grass-fed, protein-packed snacks that you literally can toss in your bag and grab at any point. They're the perfect snack to keep in your car, in your office, in your handbag, every single place you go. Now you're getting clean protein with zero junk, no artificial preservatives, no added sugar, and no freaking BS. Just real food, real flavor, and real fuel to get you through your day without crashing. And go and check this out, because right now you can grab 30 of these bad boys for just $36. That's $1.20 per stick to keep your energy up and your decisions freaking smart. So click the link below and stock up, because your future hungry self will thank you. So for instance, when I was 16, I was dating this guy, very toxic. I was with him for almost 4 years. There were moments where he was just so verbally abusive, unkind. And I'd have moments of taking it, and then I would break, and I'd be like, I'm done.
Yes.
I would feel so freaking good once I was done.
Yeah.
I would slam the phone, leave, whatever.
Yeah.
And then a day later, 2 days later, now I'm remembering all the beautiful things. I'm missing his touch. Even though he was mean, I would miss sometimes that every so often he would say a kind, gentle word in my ear. Is that why?
Yeah. And particularly the touch, because beta endorphin, the most powerful releaser of beta endorphin is touch. Okay. So that's why, your conscious brain was going, right, we're out of here. But your unconscious brain, your physiology, the thing that was actually addicted to this person was like, because I need my hit. So you need to go get my hit now. And that's it. You will go back and you will think, well, it wasn't that bad. And actually, sometimes he's quite nice. And also, you had the psychological thing going on there as well. So alongside beta endorphin, love is an attachment relationship. Your attachment relationship fundamentally underpins your psychology, it underpins your mental health, it underpins your behavior. So if you're in a secure attachment, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing, because you are very confident in your relationship, you don't have anxieties about your relationship, you don't think the person's going to leave you, you are really comfortable with emotional and physical intimacy. Secure attachments are the best foundation, because they give you the confidence to go out into the world and achieve things and deal with maybe the knockbacks and the risks and the challenges, and pick yourself up and dust yourself off and carry on, because this person will always be there for you, and you will be able to go back and you'll be able to collapse in a heap, and they will pick you up and they will make you feel better. And that's love. They will do that for you. And that is a secure attachment. Unfortunately, there are 3 other insecure attachment styles. And in those, particularly preoccupied people. So preoccupied people have very high anxiety about their relationships. And they crave emotional and physical intimacy, not because it's going to give them confidence necessarily, but because that's the way they make sure the person never leaves them. They cling to the person. I'm going to cling to you. And so in your situation there, it sounds like you might have been preoccupied. So you were actually really insecure in that relationship. It wasn't a secure foundation. It wasn't giving you confidence. It wasn't making you feel powerful. But you were really attached to this guy in a very unhealthy way. And the way you would have dealt with that was, some days you would go, right, I'm done. Yeah. But then that preoccupied, anxious bit of you would be like, but actually I really, really don't want him to leave me. And I really, really need that intimacy with me. And even if that intimacy is a little bit negative, I'm going to go back because I need that. So you've got these 2 things maintaining. You've got the drug addiction of beta endorphin, and you've got, particularly if you are a preoccupied, anxious attachment style, you will be drawn back to that person anyway.
So have you seen the preoccupied attachment, do you see them more likely being in toxic relationships?
Yeah. Afraid so. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because the other two attachment styles are avoidant. The other two are insecure ones, and they tend to avoid relationships. So they are less likely to be taken into a bad relationship with someone like a dark triad. Yeah. So if you're preoccupied, you are in a way the most vulnerable group.
All right, I got a really strong quote from you, girl.
Oh, God.
In your book, jealousy is love's darker twin.
Yeah.
So talk to me about jealousy. You actually say that it exists on 3 levels.
Yeah. So jealousy is an emotion, like any other emotion. We have negative emotions, we have positive emotions. And emotions evolved to protect us in some way, either to, if they're positive ones, to direct us towards something that's good for us. So joy, passion, lust, these are all emotions, and they're going to draw us towards something good, enjoyment. And then we have the negative emotions, things like anger, jealousy, rage, all these sorts of things. Now, jealousy is an emotion, and negative emotions aren't bad things in themselves. So anger is important because it lets you get things out. If you do it constructively and it's not destructive, anger is really important. We should never suppress anger, but we should deal with it positively. Jealousy is the same. What jealousy is doing is it's flagging up a threat to your relationship. And by doing that, it's making you aware that there's this threat, usually another person who's maybe trying to take your partner. And it's making you aware of this threat, and it's saying to you, what are you going to do? You need to do something, because this is a threat. You've made a big investment in this relationship. You know, you might have children with this person. They might be bringing a lot to the relationship, and you risk losing them.
What if the risk is all in your head?
Then there's a problem, because then you have obviously the massive risk of scuppering or destabilizing a relationship, which is actually fine. And yeah, we do have some people who are much more likely, again, I'm afraid preoccupied people, are much more likely to suffer from extreme jealousy. So jealousy is fine as long as it is in a contained sphere. When we get extreme jealousy, then there are obviously various negative outcomes from extreme jealousy, because obviously extreme jealousy can lead to violence, it can lead in itself to toxic relationships, or it can lead to, yes, the belief that something is going on and it's not. And obviously jealousy, extreme jealousy, is often there in dark triad relationships, because one of the things that dark triad relationships try to do is control your access to other people. And often someone who is in that relationship with you will be jealous about other relationships you have, because by doing that, they don't have complete control over your psychology, and they want complete control over your psychology so they can control you, and they don't want you having input from anybody else. So they will be extremely jealous. They will often try and sell it to you as a good thing. Oh yeah. So, you know, it's a good thing that this shows how much I love you. I can't possibly bear anybody else to look at you. Or, I'm jealous of how much time you spend with your family. I want us to spend more time together because I love you so much. So it can be used in different ways. So jealousy, and jealousy exists at sort of 3 levels. So we have the emotional jealousy, and then it's at the behavioral level. So like, what will you do? So sometimes that can be things like, extreme distress, hysterics, violence, control, sometimes things like monitoring the other person, hacking into their stuff, stalking them, those sorts of things. And then you have the cognitive level. And the cognitive level is all those ruminations about what's going on. So it can be, ideas about revenge, ideas about confronting the person, feelings of inadequacy or self-loathing. All these sorts of things can come into jealousy as well. So you will actually experience it at 3 different levels. And in fact, there is a 4th level, and that's the physiological response of your body. So often when you are jealous, you feel sweaty, your heart races, you feel a little bit like you're faint, you feel sick, you can't eat. All these things are also a physiological response to jealousy. And they've evolved all to say to you, look over there. But as you say, there is a dysfunction in that system, because some people can experience jealousy inappropriately or in a very extreme form.
So it can be a healthy thing.
Absolutely.
It can also be something extremely toxic. How do we then in that moment know which one it is? Because when I was dating this guy, I was in college, and I remember I lived about an hour and a half from college, and one day he called me, and this is back before cell phones. So I pick up the phone in the common area, and he's talking to me, and one of my friends has her boyfriend over, and so he's like, who's the guy in the background? So I said, oh, it's just my friend's boyfriend. I don't think anything of it. So I hang up. 2 hours later, I get a knock on my door. He's standing there, and he goes, I know there's a man here. I know there's a guy.
Okay.
So he was trying to catch me out.
Yeah.
By the end, I somehow convinced myself it was the most romantic gesture he'd ever done.
Yes, yeah. And it just isn't. It's really hard giving advice to people who are actually in these relationships now, because I don't think anyone can understand what it's like to be in one of those relationships unless you're in one, and how hard it is to maintain what is real. Mm-hmm. But no relationship should be an island. Literally none. That is not how it's supposed to be as a human. If it's just you and your partner, to practically the exclusion of anyone else, you are not allowed to see anyone else socially, yet you're not allowed to be in a space with the same sex as your partner, you're not allowed to go to work dues, you're not allowed to do any of those things, then there is something wrong. If somebody is narrowing it down and down and down and down to the point it's just the two of you, then they are highly, highly likely to be either a psychopath, a narcissist, or indeed a dark triad personality. Because they are trying to control access to you. Because the reason why they do that is they don't want anyone blowing the trumpet and saying, hold on one second. And they also don't want you to see other people's relationships. So like you go over to your friend's house and you're like, oh, look at how so-and-so's interacting with her husband. That's weird, because that's not how my relationship feels. So they don't want anything to compare it to, and they don't want anybody else breaking that psychological hold.
So where's that fine line then between this is the healthy jealousy that actually your relationship, it just nurtures it and it actually helps, and then that one little step over the line where like, now the jealousy has become super toxic?
I think where you are basically being asked to radically change your behaviour.
Period.
So, period. If you are being told to radically change your behaviour, as in you cannot stand in a common area with a friend and their boyfriend, I mean that's a radical change to your behaviour, and you shouldn't be being asked to do that, because you shouldn't have to change everything about yourself to be with somebody. Actually, they should want to be with you as you are. Obviously, we all tweak a little bit, we all compromise a little bit, that's fine. But when you are finding yourself having to consciously change your behaviour and what you do, and if you feel fearful, if you're in a situation with someone and you feel fearful and you don't want your partner to know about it because you know there'll be a backlash, you need to question that. Why do I feel scared? I shouldn't feel scared talking to my friend's boyfriend. That's not normal.
And of course, I didn't ask myself that. I just said, okay, crap, next time I just need to make sure the guy's not in the room when I'm talking to him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because you do not want to trigger that person. And that's a sign of fear and a sign of, drastically changing your behaviour. And you're actually being led down the path of actually, being untruthful.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting way of looking at it. Okay, I want to go to the next stage now.
Yes.
So let's just recap. So it's the euphoric high when you first start dating. Then I've got the intense cravings as you start to really get to know them. And then I've got, you start to chase the high. And you're always trying to catch that feeling that you once had. And I guess in relationships, we call it the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about how that happened, and is this the phase where cheating is starting to kind of really occur in relationships?
It's really hard to say. We say the 7-year itch. The 7-year itch is it's not really like a point in a timetable, because we all differ in terms of how much we want to chase that high. Some people are predisposed to much prefer the euphoric, passionate bit of a relationship to the more humdrum, but maybe more deep-seated, what we call companionate love. So once you've gone past that passionate stage, which is underpinned by oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, and you go into the beta endorphin stage where you've built an attachment, that's known as companionate love. And that's very different to passionate love. It's much more deep-seated. It feels calmer. Maybe it feels less euphorically roller coastery, but there's more of a contentment there. Now, some people love that because it feels, particularly if you're in a secure relationship, it feels really secure and it's lovely but there is not the passion or the excitement. So actually it's more to do with how predisposed you are to actually chase the high. And some people are just genetically and psychologically more likely to want to chase that high than others are. So it's not really a timetable thing in terms of we all get the 7-year itch. Some people are just more likely to start getting itchy feet and start be like, I'm going to start looking elsewhere. And as I said, that's partly psychological, to do with your upbringing. So if you have parents, for example, who were unfaithful and you knew about it and you saw it, then again, it might be something that's more normalized for you. There is an argument that some of it is genetically predisposed.
Really?
Yeah. So there might be, and it's kind of a controversial piece of work, but there is a particular gene which seems to predispose people to be more likely to be unfaithful. We're not sure why. It might be that, yes, they find they are more susceptible to sort of the oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin hit. And so that could be one of the reasons behind it as well. And, you know, I think particularly if you're male and you are unfaithful, in a way it's not that it's necessarily easier, but the consequences of being unfaithful in terms of pregnancy are much less.
Oh, yeah.
Than for a woman. So the fact that you can be genetically, it can be passed down quite easily, that unfaithful gene, essentially. What men are more worried about than women, and this comes back to jealousy and what makes men and women jealous, because it's actually different. So men are more jealous if the woman has a sexual relationship elsewhere than if she has an emotionally intimate relationship elsewhere with another man, as in she falls in love with him. And the reason for that is because if she has sex with another man and becomes pregnant, that stops the partner's ability to have a baby with her for a good chunk of time. So he is much more fearful of sexual intimacy than emotional intimacy. For women, it's the other way around. So if your partner is emotionally intimate with someone, has a really emotional, loving relationship with somebody, and it wasn't just sex, you are much more likely to be jealous and find that harder to row back from. And the reason for that is what the guy is bringing to that relationship, obviously isn't his womb. It is the fact that he's bringing his emotional support, his financial support, his protection. If he gets another woman pregnant, you're going to have to share all that with her in this emotional relationship, because he's not going to want to leave her because he has an emotional investment there. It's not just sex. So that's why, and there's been lots of studies done on the fact that women and men, the things that make them jealous differ.
Oh, that's so good. Actually, I think I've got stats from your book. You say, so emotional infidelity, 83% of women said that it was the most triggering versus only 40% of men. That's like half. And then with sexual infidelity, 60% of men found it to be more jealous-inducing compared to only 17% of women.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if it's just sex, women are much more likely to deal with that and maybe maintain the relationship than they are if he's actually fallen in love with somebody.
And with that same, I'm going to go back to the dark triad. Would that be the same there as well?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why dark triads are more likely to be unfaithful is the fact that they have no empathy. They really, really could not care less whether they hurt you or not, or indeed whether they hurt the other 1, 2, 3, 4 other people they're having a relationship with, because they actually genuinely don't care. The only thing at the center of a dark triad's life is this good for me? Am I enjoying this? Is this raising me in status in some way? One of those questions. And if so, that's fine.
Because they can't process consequences?
Well, as long as there are no consequences for them, they don't care. If it impacts them, absolutely they won't do it.
But let's say cheating, and their wife said, if you cheat on me, I'm going to leave you. I can't imagine that would actually stop a psychopath or a narcissist.
Because also, he will think, or he or she will think, you're not leaving me.
So they're just narcissistic enough to be like,
you're not going to leave me.
You're not going to do it.
Because I have ultimate control. I control you. So very rarely would they believe that threat. Because they think they're clever enough to keep you there.
Right. Is it then that we're just so hardwired? Because when I think about a certain dynamic where, let's say the guy has gone and cheated on the woman, and let's say he is a narcissist, maybe clinically, maybe not, just has those narcissistic traits. And I've heard people where they literally will blame the woman for their cheating. So it's your fault I cheated because you weren't giving me sex, you don't take care of yourself anymore, you put the kids first, like fill in the blank. And there are women that accept it. Is that so hardwired? Like, why on earth would we have hope higher than the pain of abuse?
I think it really depends on the individual. So there's a lot of individual variation here. You would get some women in that circumstance who would just turn around and go, no. And it's a lot to do with self-esteem. So it's a lot to how much you value yourself, okay? Because if you value yourself, when somebody says, it's because you're not treating me this way, it's not true, and you have the power to say, I'm not accepting that, you have to be responsible for your own behaviour, and this is your behaviour. There might be things we can change as a couple, but this isn't on me. So a lot of it's to do with self-esteem, and particularly in abusive relationships, people who are being abused don't have any self-esteem. So it's very easy to make them believe that this is your fault, because you aren't doing the things we need to maintain this relationship. And they will use that, and that's just part of being narcissistic or manipulative or a psychopath, is you use all these tools to make them feel like it's their fault. Because the thing about A narcissist is they will never say sorry. They will never accept responsibility for anything. So it will always be your fault because they're incapable of saying that one's on me.
So as you start to then look at all of this, really assess the type of relationship you're in, how you got in there, like, thank you, you've done such a beautiful job of really breaking down like why things happen, our biology, the power of love and manipulation and things like that. And then there's that final piece, which you kind of alluded to earlier about the withdrawals, right? When you're trying to leave. And so as we're talking about why we don't leave, that emotional feeling of, but I need them, how do you finally break that addiction, if you will, so that you can start a new life and actually start, hopefully, a healthy dynamic with someone?
It's really hard because it's very powerful. And in circumstances where someone ends a relationship and it's not been abusive, generally they will have a wider social network. Now, these beta endorphins are released by all your relationships, not just romantic love. The neurochemistry of love is the same regardless of what relationship you're in. So whether you have love with your friends, your family, whatever it might be. So you can satiate that need for beta endorphins somewhere else. So that's why when we split up with somebody or something breaks down, we need our network of other people to lift us up, to spend time with us, to replace the touch of the lover with the touch of the friend, and to help us say. Now, it won't mean that you will feel amazing and none of the pain will be there. Of course it will. But the thing that's going to drag you back, the physiological side of it, will be less because you are getting beta endorphins somewhere else. The problem with being in an abusive relationship is usually by the end, that person has nobody left. And that is why it's partly so hard, because there's nowhere to get that beta endorphin from. So what we try to say to people is, you need to try, and it is hard before you leave, and again, this is hard because you have to try and do it in private. If you can reconnect with your network, if you can't, find a charity or somewhere or one of the helplines. Some of those helplines will contact your family for you and have them ready to be there for you or your friends, and they will sort that out for you because you need to leave into a supportive network that's going to lift you up and also be there when that urge to go back is hard. So we can try and satiate the physiological urge by finding that love somewhere else, find that social connection somewhere else.
Why do we naturally, though, sometimes isolate? So let's say, for instance, the person hasn't forced you to isolate, but you're heartbroken, you're going with somewhat these withdrawals. A lot of the time, I'm just going to speak for myself, when my ex and I would have these massive arguments, like massive rows, break up, never going to see you again, I wouldn't call my friends. I would switch the lights off in my bedroom as like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and I would play Celine Dion on freaking repeat.
Yes.
And I would just cry. What is it about automatically or naturally doing that with isolation? And maybe actually you're helping me put things together. Is that probably why I kept going back to him?
Yeah.
Ah.
Because you didn't go into the arms of anyone else. Yeah. And also, I think there's several things going on there. First of all, at a very basic level, when animals are harmed, they isolate. So if you see a sick animal, it takes itself away from the pack.
You're right.
And we're just an animal. So our drive is not to necessarily run into the arms of somebody else. It's actually to withdraw and just hide in the burrow, basically, and await death, essentially, is what animals are doing. So you're doing that. There's usually quite a lot of guilt or shame associated with being in an abusive relationship because you feel stupid. Particularly if your family or your friends have voiced this person is awful and you shouldn't be with them and has tried to help you and move you through. Because quite often your partner will make you think that your family are the problem. They don't like me. They've told you to leave me. So we don't want them because they're destabilizing us. And so there's the shame associated with actually going into that and saying, you were right. And I feel stupid because I didn't see it. Now, you shouldn't feel stupid. These people are arch manipulators. They are amazing at what they do. Okay, so you should never, ever, we all want love. You should never punish yourself for having wanted love. That shouldn't be something you punish yourself. So there's that shame associated with it as well, which also means that sometimes people will not want to reach out to anybody because it's hard to admit that you were in that sort of situation.
My mum actually had no idea. God bless her. She watches my show. So she finds out a lot through this show.
Yeah.
And so after she watches one where I've just said something, she's like, I had no idea.
Yeah, and that must be really hard for her.
I think it is very hard because she liked him. And I never told anyone. And so part of me, even now when I speak to my mum, I'm like, Mum, you didn't know because I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
Like I deliberately hid it from you because I knew it was toxic and I knew I was going to keep going back to him. So I was like, well, the last thing I want is to tell my mum what he's just done. Yeah. And then me bring him round again in 2 weeks.
Yes, exactly. I think that's why we isolate partly, but it is really hard. And as I said, the hardest thing is more the psychological side that's going to be hard. That withdrawal, particularly if they've left you with very little identity, then it's a case of having to rebuild that identity. Who am I actually? Trying to remember who I am, have an independent thought, make a decision yourself. That's all. And in a way, depending on how long you've been in it, it will take, good professional help to help you deal with that.
When I think about people that I've met who have been in abusive or toxic relationships, over time it looks like the life has been sucked out of them.
Absolutely.
Are they able to bring that life back, that spark?
They are, but it's very unlikely they can do it on their own. I think people who've been in that kind of relationship, you really do need to seek professional help with that because it's a very gentle but very long-term therapy that you need to go through. And you need to be supported in that. It's not something you can do through self-care or you can self-therapize. You can't do that. You need to go and find help with that.
Are there any differences between male dark triads and female dark triads?
Not really. No, not at all.
Really?
No, they are pretty much the same. They are pretty much the same. I mean, I work with male victims of abuse, and there's no real difference between their experience and female victims of abuse. It's very much the same. It's just we don't talk about male victims of abuse very often.
So the fear centers are still the same triggered fear centers, even though, oh God, I mean, I'm just going to say it, a man doesn't necessarily have to fear for his life most of the time in abusive relationship like a woman does.
Yeah, no, it's, no, but the emotional abuse. So it's really interesting. There was some statistics done, I think, in fact, by the CDC here in America, looking at rates of emotional and physical abuse. And for women, the rate of physical abuse is about 1 in 3. The rate for men is 1 in 5. Okay, so it's still pretty, 20% of men will have
That they actually
experienced.
admit as well, right?
Well, exactly, because culturally it's not an easy thing to admit. When we come to emotional abuse, it's exactly the same.
Oh,
So women are more likely to use emotional abuse, obviously, rather than physical abuse, because generally they aren't as strong, but they will start. I mean, I spoke to a guy who, and it doesn't necessarily have to be strength, so I spoke to a guy whose wife would scold him with things like pots of coffee, would just pour a pot of coffee over his head, or something like that. So it doesn't have to be fists.
God. And didn't you actually say, I think it may have been the same person, they also saw this woman, their wife, abusing their own parents, like dragging the mum.
And that's what I remember interviewing him and saying, why the hell did I not at that point go, this is not normal? But that shows the power of it. That he accepted and thought that that was normal, that was okay that his wife was doing that. I mean, in the end, and this is what happens a lot in abusive relationships, is when there are children involved, often that is the thing that ultimately gets people to leave. Is the risk, or in fact, the perpetrator actually, abusing the children as well.
Dr. Anna, I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for breaking everything down, explaining and really helping us. If a woman's listening right now, we've gone through the entire journey of a relationship and love, that if they happen to find that the love isn't love at all and it's actually toxicity, what's the one thing that maybe you can say to them right now that makes them believe that they can still find good humans and good love out there?
I would say dark triads, abuse, it's still very much the minority. Love is a wonderful thing. It's a very powerful thing, and it can genuinely change your life. And I would also say to these women, often they doubt their instincts after they've been in an abusive relationship. Don't doubt your instincts, okay? Your instincts are very powerful. And also listen to your friends.
Oh, yes.
Your friends can tell things you can't tell, so trust your friends. But there is always a way through this, and I've dealt with many women who've had the most awful abusive experiences, both when younger, but also as adults, and they have come through it and found the most wonderful relationships. And also the other thing I would say is don't forget there is love in many different forms. So find love, maybe initially in a non-romantic sense with your friends, reconnect with your friends, reconnect with your family, your God, your dog, whatever it might be, your children. Love comes in many different ways. Reconnect that, re-find what love is supposed to feel like. and then go out there and have the confidence and trust your instincts.
So good. Where can people find you, your book, and everything that you're putting out?
Yeah, so sure. So my book is called Why We Love, The Definitive Guide to the Most Fundamental Need. And that's available at all the usual places. My website's annamachin.com, and that's got lots of podcasts and articles and resources on there. And I'm on Instagram at Dr. Anna Machin. And I post lots of things on there as well.
That's so cool. Guys, when I came across her work, I became obsessed. I really love to understand why we do things and how we end up getting trapped, even though we just want to pour love onto someone. That person ends up using it against us. And I wanted to know why. And so today she literally broke down exactly why, how we end up there. And the great news is that it's not a death sentence, that you can change things, that you can look to beautiful friends to help you get through it. And while love can absolutely hurt you, it can also heal you. So go hit up your friend right now and just tell them that you love them. Just do that right now. And guys, if you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button down there. And until next time, be the hero of your own life. Peace. God, that was so good.
Oh, good.
Oh my God. If you want to understand how men actually think, then you can't miss this episode with the legendary Julie Gottman.
The primary reason to have an affair is not physical attraction. It's not about sex.
Oh.
Women, however, are really different.